if you know how to speak to a person and you can get them into an identity agreement early on in that conversation, you can do anything. And if you just look at Milgram, all they use, so remember we talked about those 6 things that influence a person?
Mm-hmm.
Look at that Milgram experiment. There's only 3. If you look at that the lines experiment, a person guessing which line is the longer or which line matches, there's only a few in there, and you get absolute compliance from that. So if you can do that and then get somebody to make an identity agreement, like what kind of person are you? So as just to put this in practical terms, like I'm training a real estate person one-on-one. They're like, well, how do I get these clients to behave like this at the end? So you get them to agree at the beginning. And like, so one of these lines would be like, when I first started learning real estate, they told me that I'm only ever going to deal with 3 types of clients. They're going to be like, the first ones are the doubters. And these are the people that doubt everything because maybe they had a hard childhood or they got screwed over so many times that they doubt just everything, which leads them to never taking action. The next ones are the delayers. These people just push everything off in their life and blah, blah, blah. And then we have the deciders. And these people get all the information that they possibly need and they make a decision. So without me even, if I'm the real estate person, without me even telling you or you agreeing or saying what you are, I've got you to subconsciously or to privately make an agreement in your head that you're probably in category 3. And that's within the first 10 minutes of meeting somebody. So I've started to compromise identity in just a few minutes.
Mm.
And if I also know that you have these behavioral patterns and I also know that you seek significance, right before I say that, I might say, Joe, it's obvious you make a tremendous difference around here. I know a lot of these people really look up to you. And I looked up to my mentor who taught me this stuff, real estate, and he said there's only 3 types of clients. So now I've got your dopamine levels up. I've got your neurotransmitter levels up as a little verbal drug dealer to get you kind of addicted to what's going on here. Then I pull you into this identity trap. That's like 45 seconds where I've got you hooked into identity. And it's just a small piece, but I've got you hooked in to begin with. And I've got you to agree that you are a certain type of person. That's the key. Am I the type of person who blank?
Did you see a lot of the characteristics of this kind of psyop interaction with the public during the COVID pandemic?
In my head, I was going, please don't bring up COVID.
Because it seems like I'm gonna send this to Jamie because this to me was one of the darkest moments of the propaganda of the whole thing was the complete lack of empathy for the unvaccinated, and not just lack of empathy, but disdain and contempt.
Yeah.
But this was in the LA Times, and I saved it because I knew we were going to talk today. And I remember seeing this going, God, to put yourself into a place where you could even write this and then put it in the New York Times. It says, column, mocking anti-vaxxers' COVID death is ghoulish, yes, but may be necessary. I remember when I read that. I remember when I saw that, I was thinking, Jesus Christ, this seems like this is so on the nose George Orwell.
Yeah.
It's such a mindfuck. No one should ever mock someone's death. That's just a citizen that got infected with what now we know was a genetically engineered virus.
Yeah.
A gain-of-function virus from a weapons lab that got out to no one should mock an innocent person for not trusting the government and not wanting to get vaccinated. That is so crazy to mock someone's death from a disease where they did nothing wrong. If you want to mock the death of a murderer or a rapist or some horrible criminal, that's a different thing, right? Yeah. You want to mock Osama bin Laden's death. That's a different. We're talking about a different thing.
But
this is crazy. This is crazy to say this to grandmas and obese people that wind up dying from COVID. It's crazy to put that in the Los Angeles Times. But that was one of those things. It would let everybody else know this is how they think about you if you don't follow along.
Yeah, and the tribe will get you,
Yeah.
especially that artificially simulated tribe,
Uh-huh.
where there's millions of people that are going to be angry with you, people
Yeah.
you don't even know.
And a lot of them are bots.
So the first time I ever went on Dr. Phil, he was a great guy. He came to my wedding. He's a close friend now, but I've never met him before. I was some ex-military guy. It's like a tobacco chewing dude in the military. And I'm going on Dr. Phil. And I'm like, man, how do I act? What do I do if I'm nervous? And he's like, man, you have a horrible disease. And this is what Phil said. Chase, you've got a horrible disease. You have a need for love from strangers.
Whoa.
And that changed me, man.
That's some harsh truth.
Yeah. And I think that got me over that. But if you look at all of this, everything that was going on, what we talked about manipulating the mammalian brain, it's Cesar Millan. It's every step that Cesar Millan
Does with dogs.
Focus, authority,
Right.
tribe, and emotion.
Uh-huh.
So if I hack your focus using novelty, if you remember, we talked about like something breaks our expectation. I'm not expecting to see mocking and all that kind of stuff, mocking anti-vaxxers. Focus. Authority is just LA Times.
Right.
Tribe. People must agree with this because it's published and it's
Right.
up there. And then the emotion. Mocking the deaths might be ghoulish, so make me feel a little bit of emotion. That helps me feel like a good person maybe.
Maybe
But
necessary
might
to be ghoulish.
necessary. So it's focus, authority, tribe, and emotion.
How much of that do you think was engineered? How much of this do you think was planned out, this response? Do you think that someone sat in a room and that people discussed the best ways to get people to comply?
Yes. Oh, yes. I would bet my career because it was executed following textbook protocol. And there are these, I made a YouTube video on my channel of like how to spot PSYOPs, and there's like 20 different little things. You only need one thing, and you can spot whether or not you're standing in the middle of a PSYOP. And that one thing is if the opinion that's coming out needs people to be silenced, it's a PSYOP. There are psychological operations in play.
Wow. So if you can't question it, if you're supposed to just go along, it's a PSYOP.
Yeah, and if people have to be silenced or publicly shamed because of their information, and they're not telling people the sky's falling. They're not saying crazy shit.
Mm-hmm.
They're just saying basic stuff, and they need to be silenced. That is a PSYOP. No matter what, you can go back in any time in history during a PSYOP of our country, and if people needed to be silenced or shamed publicly, which is like the tribe, right? That's why public speaking is our number one fear for humans. It's not a fear of speaking; it's a fear of judgment.
Right.
So I'm just putting the threat of judgment out there. That is a PSYOP. So if people have to be silenced, and there were Harvard doctors kicked off of the internet or kicked off of Twitter for this stuff.
Yeah.
That's
Stanford, MIT. Yeah.
That's all you need.
Yeah. The Great Barrington Declaration. People didn't agree with exactly how the government was handling everything, and they were silenced. And they were treated like fringe quacks instead of respected physicians. And it was openly discussed in emails. That's what's really crazy. They talked about the strategy of silencing these people. And then you had the actual government itself contacting Twitter, trying to get people removed, which is wild.
Yeah, and didn't you have Mark Zuckerberg on? He talked about
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah, he talked about Facebook doing it, about the FBI contacting them. It's crazy to believe, but my hope is that people have learned from this past 4 years and that this is an eye-opener.
Yeah, and one thing I could say, like if you want to know whether or not you have been lied to, if you can't see anything wrong with the side you agree with, and you can't see anything right with the side that you disagree with, you have been manipulated.